Okay. So if he has this Sheshiver of the Yodo, the Gilam Malkum Shilkum, but he reached the place that he has to bow. Allah Yishka shouldn't bow down. Now, if he should leave Shemaim, even if he would have his heart to his hand. The other one is hands. I'm mugging around, look at the mugging rubbish, my scotch is dim who, that if it is, I've mugging a worm cost of the Shech, Halil, the Hakal was aces, Halil to make all this, with proper haste, feel, especially at the time of davening, can't be make. Alpha Beam, if they, Shinir Kamishtak, because it seems like he's bowing down to an idol. Ain the host of al ta'aro. Okay, you shouldn't add onto the like image, but really, I guess the praises. Shalakadosh Baruch Hu Yosem Akel Gadol Magibar Van Noira. Maybe I got Torah wrong. Maybe Torah is praise. Amakadosh Baruch Hu more than Akel Gadol Magibar Van Noira, more than um, those. Which Gadol great, Gibor the awesome, the powerful, and the awesome. The Dafka with Tefillah Nation. It's only by prayer because you can't change from the coin which the Rabbanan set up, so which Rabbanan coined. But by supplications or requests and shvachim or praise, sha'al the moment miyat, one person saying on his own, less than we don't care with us. Still, it's proper someone wants to be lengthened about the praise of Hashem. She almost should say it in with psukim. Alef. Maskil nomen bevarcha shnia mash bevarcha moed geshem. When we start saying in the second bracha, mash bevarcha moed geshem, betfila, most of shel yom tov achron shel chag, and the most of the last yom tov of Sukkot. The aim post can add tefillas most of shel yom tov rishon shel Pesach, and we don't stop until the first yom tov of Pesach. The Mishmar says, because it has reviving the dead. When rain is the life of the world, it's like reviving the dead. But Tfilas Mosif and Mosif, the Ratos of Hashem, and it's fitting to mention them in order to make appeasing towards Hashem. Yisbarach Yom Tov Rishon Shelchak, from the first Yom Tov of Sukkot, Shenidon about all the mind, because that's the time when we're going to get judged about water. Because the rain is a bad sign at the time of Sukkot, it's impossible to sit in Sukkot at the time when it's raining. You can't mention the rain until I pass the 7 days of sitting in the Sukkah. It's fitting to mention it immediately at the first night of Yom Tov, first night of Sukkot. No, immediately in the night of the first the last day of Sukkot, the last Yom Tov of Sukkot. And Levisha Mitzila Mitzvilas Arvis and La Enkola basic. This is just simply marred, not everyone's in the show. This one's going to mention, this one's not going to mention it. The Yasa Good is a good, it's going to become bundles. Bundles going to be separate groups. One we mentioned in Shachris. You should also the same, and they should also have to get much Yachris. And they say because also mentioned Mashiruach until it's mentioned by the Shtil Tzibur, or Shamish or the attendant. Because I'm allowed those more to Geshem clothing the field, he says more to Geshem for prayer. We'll go to the comments going to say later on. But this impossible to mention by Shachris or to announce by Shachris. And they should talk with more Gula Tefillah because he has to be sitting put next to a Gula Tefillah, can't be making an announcement. Further another reason, I'm Betaz looking at Taz. If he made a mistake and he mentioned Mashiruach Moed Geshem, B'marav Shel Shmini Atzeres, and the Marav Shmini Sheres, or B'Shachos in Choser, or in the Shachos, he wouldn't repeat. This is Derech Chaim. Until it's Mosuf, until the Mosuf. Hatam the impulse can be be'er. The reason why we don't stop at night of Pesach, why don't we do it at the night before? Who Gam can now it's also mentioned earlier, Shlomo Exalver more of an M shouldn't have something mixed in with them. Shazad Matzki was Matzki. This one's mentioning, this one's not mentioning. Avalata, Shaposkin, most of now everyone's stopping. And most of Yidu Kakol, everyone's going to know idea Shlil Tibur, Shlil Tibur, or Shamash, or the attendant Shemach, it's called the Matfilas, most of them to tell that he mentions before that most of you are to tell. Shachrozo has cars to tell, Simon who Lehem, Nafsach has cars to Yashim. Oh. That the mentioning of Atal is a sign for them that to stop mentioning Geshem, or the Mashim Rav and Geshem anymore. Vizehu Lemencha Lemenach. So this is for the Sfardim. This is from the Achronim. Shinogim Lo Memorial and Gital. This is the minute the same word Atal, but welcome to Memorial Geshem instead of Memorial Geshem. Beyond Masacham during the summer. Abu Medina saying, but in our country, Shinogim Lo Memorial Atal, Beyond Masacham. We don't say Memorial Atal in the days of the summer. The Hachri is blush. It doesn't possible to mention his language. Ulahachri is the Hedya Shif to go Lomer Milom Geshem is meant and announced straight out that they should stop saying Murray Geshem. Gam Keni Nachum Neshanira Kemaman Kemanim Bagashamim. It also doesn't seem like you should say you should announce, you should stop, but it seems like you're like protesting about the rain. Al Derech Shalom, like what they said, in Respal number of Tova can't pray about a majority of good. Al Kain Pasuk Gimel, therefore the Ramaz Paskin, specific Gimel, Shanogim Shalom Lahafsik Milahazkir Shkem, Yashem is Menaganatza to stop from mentioning Maridi Geshem at Tfilas as Mincha until Mincha. Sheshamu Kavar Mishtel Tzibur Shapasuk Tfilas Musaf, because at that point he's already heard an announcement, sort of announcement, he's heard the Shtel Tzibur do it without, he stopped saying in Tfilas Musaf. Now, with Tfilas Musaf, by Tfilas Musaf, Kolakal Gam Gam Shtel Tzibur Maskin and Geshem with Tfilas Nachash, entire congregation, even Shtel Tzibur is mentioning it in the quiet prayer. Gadesh Shaloyu Davar More Ben, even though there should be something mixed up in between the Tzibur. Bim Tav Marv, made a mistake in Marv, shall pass up on Pesach or B'Shachos and Musaf, or in B'Shachos and Musaf, will Hiskir Mashav or Moed Geshem. V'Kuli Yamar Amchazer, and you didn't mention Moed Geshem, according to everyone, you don't repeat. This one is Derech Chaim. Based in the Mishnah, in the Berurah says, I'm Mishnah Berurah. Oh no, wait, we didn't do this. Okay, next, based in the Shlomo. Also, has in the Geshem Ajiyako is Shliach Tzibur. It's also mentioned Mashur Baruch Hu Geshem until the Shliach Tzibur mentions it, announces it. Yishom Shikodim Shemaskilim Mosaf Machos Shamish Mashur Baruch. And those that say that before you start saying Mosaf, the Shamash mentions Mashur Baruch. Today, Tzibur Yad Tzibur B'Tfilas Mother, the congregation will mention in their prayers. Chayinogim, that's the minhag. This one is the Mordechai. V'ish Parakama the Tainus, Reish Parakama the Tainus from the first Parakama the Tainus. Hilgach, Afam Hil Cholo, even therefore, even if he's sick or one or is forced, Lo Yaktim Tfilas L'Tfil Tzibur shouldn't make first his prayer to the prayer of the congregation. The Fisha also Lahaz Gilad Shiyomer Shlil Tzibur, because also to mention this Mashiv Ruach before to mention the Shlil Tzibur. Avlim Yodeh L'Shehikriz but if he knows the Shliach Tzibur has announced it, how v'yishu lo shama ma'asker, even though he didn't hear the mentioning, the announcement. Many times even though he didn't hear it, he still can mention it. Many times for this reason, Abal the basic, and that's when it comes to show that Tzibur Maskilim is Kilu L'Spal, and the congregation has started to daven. He can pray and mention Nashur Baruch Hu Lo Sham Mashliach Tzibur, and he didn't hear the Mashliach Tzibur. He still at the time after it's been said. The Mishnah Berurah says, also it's also to mention, that means that even though the congregation which is praying the prayer of Moshe, and they're also to mention the Mashur Baruch Hu and the Geshem, if they wasn't mentioned, announced by the Shliach Tzibur. This is from the King Kosevu Harbi Achronim, so says Karbi Achronim, the Lokum Magen Rambam, the Magen Rambam, and Berurah, the Berurah. Okay. O Shamish can I call them a Tefillah, or the Shamish before the Tefillah mentions it, and then they could do it. When Kumoshe Hashem Mefarshim, Ramazim explains. Similarly, the Shliach Tzibur shouldn't mention except when he prays in a loud voice. This one the Derech Chaim. But in the quiet prayer, Kivin Shalo Shechor is Mikodam Atil, since it wasn't announced before the prayer, he shouldn't do it before that. I guess this is according to the Minhag of the Rama. And we come welcome. Wait. No, I mean if you didn't announce it. It's video of his one person said in a loud voice, but told to be during his prayer. Mari the Gashem, he screamed it out. After also last, even though it's also to do that, Shari Lo Shama Minshil Tib, we didn't hear from the Shil Tib. Mikol Malcolm, Mutar Masham Lahaska, also look to the people who hear it to mention in their prayers. The Zugu for Akaz, I mean, this itself is like a mentioning. Ken Kosu Hayamnus of the Hayadim Rice. In the nearly, it seems to me, the Yambol Zachu Gashem, but Tfila Zu, if he didn't mention Gashem in this prayer, Ain't Chazi wouldn't have to repeat. Yesh poskim the sovereign the Hasrazal Mikri Elim Kain Jehovah's Kodam Tefillah. They some say that only that an announcer only counts if you announce before the prayer. O Shisham Mishtel Tzibor, you heard from Mishtel Tzibor Chazaras Tefillah B'Shehizkir Gashem, and the beginning of the prayer which he mentions Gashem. V'chayel Adam Gam Kain Lo Kam Mirakshim L'Tarim L'Hazkir Avalo L'Shei Chayav. And the Chayyam only said that it's just mutter to mention, but not that you're obligated to mention it. V'yishomim okay, you shekodem you the mishamish and mention masharuch so it's a mistake. This is from the Taz, the King Class of my memory, the Class of the Mark Sense of V'chein Muchav Lavash, so much people in the bush. The Torah lumber perish in the means and you have to say not Yeshomim but rather perish. Shekodem the income machlok the scholars no machlok at all. Everyone agrees you should be announcing Masharuch. I'm Bechayad and look at the Kayavadin. She is to Shlomo asks Kamushanog and Shemachriz and Raf Masharuch. He warns not to mention just like those that mention. He warned not to do like those that are the minhag just mentioned Masharuch, just Masharuch. Giselle and if our cause this doesn't count as an announcement. Shari Makomos Omrim Gam Bekayis Masharuch. Because there is in some places to say Masharuch also in the summer. Elias Yisai Moed Geshem. You have to conclude Moed Geshem. You can't just say Masharuch or say Moed Geshem. Af Imhu, even if he's sick and he's not there, if he's not sick but the whole year, also not to it's also to have his prayer before the congregation. Lo Yakim, he shouldn't be, I guess it should be at the same time. Lo Yakim shouldn't go first. If you whom is Baal, basically he's praying in his house, also the high school called him Shem's and the Tibur, it's also mentioned before the congregation has said it. V'lachem b'nei yeshuvim, therefore the people in the city, Shem's Baal, beloved minion, when they daven without a minion, this is the prima gun in the Derech HaKayim. Yamtinu b'shmini atzeres, they should wait by shmini atzeres, Shem's Baal, most of us, some l'sof sheish shahos, until close to the end of the 6 hours. The Bavad lo yizachu l'sibur yosem l'spal, so it's sure they didn't delay more than this from davening. Hamosuf. But all these follow most of the Yom Masharuch, and you should pray most of them say Masharuch. Apple Pishu, the Mishnah Hechriz the Kavai, even though he didn't hear it, but similarly they mentioned it, they announced it, and that's good enough for him, even though he didn't hear it. The Berura says, also has, because also mentioned it. I'm not sure the Mishnah version when it cuts out T. Look at the Mishnah that I wrote. That Philo Tibor, even the congregation can't do it. Came that they can't pray this until after the man else. Came there, Harbe Chronomus explained many Chronomus, the Taz, Zipkat, Bob, the Prichodesh, the Grab, and the Prichodesh in the Grab, and my Mordechai, Vishar Chronim, and Mordechai, and other Chronim. Milav Mashroom, the Chem Mashroom, the Shem, the Bush. As Tassim, Machaber, Vachin, Mukach, Taitos, Beis Yosef, someone's proven his Tassim, Beis Yosef. The local Machas is the Chapel, not like the Machas is the Chapel, the other Friend. Shastid, the Levaris, Tivri, and Ramag, and Ram, they decided to make the opinion of the Magen Ram, below Madame Machaber, Yitzburg, Kedas, Abi Ezri, the other Kamer holds like the Abi Ezri, Muvarash, the Kamosha, Ukafisha, Ma, Shabiano, Abach, it's like it's about to explain, Ein Shem look there. Lozina belav halkein nafkamina for the din without this no nafkamina. The Aflut is who Rama polygon that even according to them the Rama is arguing on them. And so even according to them, the Rama is arguing on all the even if they say they pass like those, they say the Rama argues. And also the Derech Chaim and the Chayadim and the Shlomo and many other Rabbanim. Kulam stomach Rama, everyone's agreeing they're stamming like the Rama and say it just that's the halacha. Without the after period because the Shimon bring on some call the Shkolik ala Shulchan Aruch, and the Shulchan Aruch Rama is fearless dafka she Yachol lo yuchal is there's only a single person not able to mention who has the Geshem for themselves, and to mention Mashiach when the Geshem before it's been mentioned, announced. Avla Tzibur, Vashlich Tzibur, with the congregation and the Tzibur, She'omnim Lispal feels most of Aldas, Lom Geshem Sof Tefillah. They're standing to prepare the most of on with the knowledge that they're going to say Geshem in the middle of the Tefillah. Ki ilu kavar hilchor has been inspired dummies as if it's already been mentioned and publicized it. It's comparable to, but in Torah you don't need another announcement. On the way in London, we only have the psak of Shulchan Aruch. The Gemara should possible is like the former Kohanim Paskin canal, which mentioned earlier. And if he didn't announce it before, Gam Tzibur still Tzibur, that even the congregation and the still Tzibur, Lo Yaskir Geshem Tfilas V'Lachosha, Tfilas V'Lachos, you shouldn't mention in Tfilas Geshem in their prayers, in their quiet prayers. So though, just no further, means the Lo Zacho has Eitzah. The fact he didn't mention the idea that she mentioned the Magen Ram Shil Tzibur Yazkir B'Toch Tfilasam that the Shil Tzibur should announce it in his prayer. Recall with an loud voice, Mash Ruach and the Geshem say that loud. Mash the Svirle is Mash they hold the ain't the Nachal Nas again. It's not proper to do that. And we call Malka Mash B'Devei Chayadim, still it's Mash B'Devei Chayadim. The B'Diavad Mahani to do the B'Diavad if this idea does work. Absolutely, Adati is Makor, even though I don't know his source for this. The Halawam Magen Avraham Hesek as Divya Bach, as in the Magen Avraham copy over the words of the Bach, the Dilar Mahani is there. And according to the Ramah, it doesn't work this. Nearly the Estismokalab, still it seems to me, appears to me you could rely on him. The Balav Hakli is Das Chayadim, without this you anyway have the Das Chayadim, the Das of the Chayim, the B'diavad Afim in his Kirgashem, the Balel Shemini Yetzer, so yes, the B'diavad, even if you mentioned more to get Mashiach and the Gashem and the night of Shmini Yetzer, so it would still not be a problem. We'll have a Rabbi in the opposite according to the opinion of the Rabbi, which take on his opinion. Imlo Hizkir adds the Geshem Loyatzi the Tfilah. So if you don't mention now Mashiach and the Geshem after hearing this loud announcement from in the middle of prayer, then you wouldn't be Yotzi at all. So better to mention it. Because you're for sure Bidi have it okay and maybe you wouldn't be Bidi if you did it the other way. Well, yeah, then we shouldn't do first before the other person's prayer. Next is Be'er Lacham. Mistabkina, Mistabkina, Evasavik, Imispal, Minium the Tikin, if a Brandon is praying Basikin, Vasicness in the shawl, Zagu for in this same shawl. And then they did the regular minhag of saying Mashruach. In Boel Zel in Min Shani, this helped the second minion Shani Mutter Leach and she mutter for a single person to mention first Mashruach. Main Lomer should the Kibin Sheish have to can't say that since it's such a long break, low mikri have doesn't count as an announcement. Zain is not true. The Hari Heavy Rush Meshem Ravam, because the Rush brings the name of Ravam, the Haskars most of it's the Mincha. The mentioning of most of works for Mincha. I Sham look at Rush. Low apologize LA as far as he doesn't argue in this line. Jeku Kain's the positive Ramam, but Gimel similar to this about positive Ramam Gimel. The option to keep the minion Achor, since it's a different minion, the Gam Halo B'Shach was you start off one Moridatal, and isn't it all studied by Shach, so you're gonna have the same Moridatal again, and not the Mashurach. Alkain Lo Mahani Zelat feels most, therefore this shouldn't work for Shios most of B'Shach, which is afterwards. V'zer Safik Yibul Gam came from Mash Pasuk Ramah. This Safik will also help in the word fall into what was passed in there. Mabasif Gimel. The Noga Hakal Lahaske Mashurach Yom. The mention of the congregation has the minhag to mention Mashruach and Yom Tov, Rishon Shom Pesach, the first Yom Tov on Mosif. Mishum Da'adayin Lo Sham Mishleach Tzibur. You still haven't heard from Shleach Tzibur, the possible Mashruach will stop saying Mashruach. But also basing that if in that same very shul, his problem minion rishon, the first minion dab already dab, and the kavar pasuk with shliach tzibur, the shliach tzibur is already established on mashav roch, bechazaras shliach tzibur, and when he repeated the shliach tzibur, in mold that shul yisarach ushuv lo mashav roch, this would help the children even further than have to mashav roch, feels most of and most. Sarach yani again. Okay, near the shetov, lizar shul lasus minion rishon basing. That's good to make sure to not have a first minion in the shul. The Yom Tov Rishon Shal Pesach on the Yom Tov Rishon of Pesach. Imam Gimel. Imam Mashav Ruach B'Yom B'Yom Hasacham. If the person says Mashav Ruach in the summer, Lo Amar B'Yom Hasacham, it doesn't mention in the winter. So we did the wrong thing either way. Imam Tzurian also, we don't make him repeat. V'Chem B'Tal. Okay, that's a Shulchan Aruch. Similarly by Mori Tal, in his group B'Yom Hasacham mentioned in the winter, or below his group B'Yom Hasacham, they mentioned in the summer. Imam Tzurian also, we don't repeat him. But on the way, because none us, the people of Ashkenaz, lo maskirin tal b'yom hasacham. We don't mention tal lo b'yom hasacham v'lo b'yom hasacham, neither in the summer neither in the winter. Rak omer b'yom hasacham. We just say in the winter, in the summertime, Rav lo yishia. We just continue with Rav lo yishia. Makal kachayim l'chassid. Nilcho is from the Torah. Yishom shazil tibur posing lahankim and tefillas. Some people say that the Shliach Tzibur stops from mentioning in prayer of most of Yom Tov Rishon Shabbat, the first Yom Tov of Pesach. Ablagaham is given ve'in and post command Mencha, that the congregation mentions it doesn't stop until Mencha because they don't hear. There's no announcement for no more Mashiach Baruch. Shisham Mekavar Shliach Tzibur Shabbatim B'Tfilas Musaf, and they can only do that in Mincha because they've already heard Shliach Tzibur. They stop for the prayer of Musaf. Okay, no, again, that is the minhag that we don't mention. Since we don't mention it, we don't stop until after you've heard the Shliach Tzibur Hazar. Mashiach Baruch, repeating Mashiach Baruch. What does it mean to say Mashiach Baruch Levad? You say Mashiach Baruch, Lo Hiskir Geshem. It doesn't mention Geshem. So if you just say Mashiach Baruch in the Shomer, you didn't say Mashiach Baruch in the Geshem. That's when it's okay. In Mas, we don't make him repeat. The Ruchos became metal, similarly that winds and similarly do. Ain't the Tzarim they're not held back even without this. But Amir also Lamal of the Lord, and it's saying it doesn't help, it doesn't hurt. Still, in every place, we have the minhag to mention the blowing of wind, and when you mention about rain. This is from the Ephronim. Shemol Ozlin Linagev Halachos Ha'aretz, and it helps there to dry up the wetness on the land, which is very much. And therefore, it's good to ask for wind, even though there would be wind anyway. Also, those, but Filu Adayin no see him a bracha, even though he hasn't finished the bracha, we don't make him repeat. This is from the Magen Avram. Since there's never an obligation to mention wind and dew ever. It's just if he does it, it's a good time during the winter, and but it'll never be held back, so it doesn't matter to mention it in the summer. Lois Kiri, he didn't mention it. Hamachaber calls the Machaber is going according to the meaning of the Sfard. Shenogam Machachilu Lomer Maridatal, the minute goes to say Maridatal in the summer. Abilu Hafni and Mafzurian, even still, we don't repeat him. We don't make him repeat. Mi'achar Shalo Chayim Chacham, because since the Chacham didn't obligate him and this. They do it during the summer. They normally say Mardatal in the summertime, and still we don't repeat him when he goes in the wintertime, since they didn't obligate him to do this even in the summertime. None in the Yom Hashamim. This is talking about we never mentioned it. Neither Tal nor Ruach. We don't mention Tal. We do mention Ruach. B'rak b'shila on no hug in the vankish kam kanal. It's all just in the request prayer for and Baruch Aleinu that we do ask for to also undo. This is from the Achronim. There's because we're asking that it should be for a bracha. Yesh tal shein lebracha. There's tal do which isn't for a bracha. In the summertime, after Shayla and Omer Tal, even the ask request for it, don't say Tal, but you have it in Omer Yom Sakam, but you have it said in the summertime, Vein Baskara, and Vein Bashayla, whether you mentioned it in the mentioning or whether you mentioned in the request prayer, go on Shomer, but saying Tal, below his Matur, for example, if saying Tal, you didn't mention Matur, we call me Yalama, and even also to everyone, you wouldn't have to repeat. It's okay, because you see, there's always going to be Tal. Ad Menchon Tom Menchon, the most of the in Hekam Latibra, because by most there still wasn't a recognition to the congregation, because there's no announcement, there's nothing to announce. We want you to say nothing. Fine, but I help him Mishnah Berurah, like a bit earlier, and just the rest of Cotton Gimel. Just Shlomo, they heard. Vim Yachad Achar Tfilas, and if one person after his prayer, Acha Hiskel, Shliel Tzibur, the person delayed his prayer until after the Shliel Tzibur started, his Palmos. If we're pausing and at that point the Shliel Tzibur had already stopped saying Geshem, Shuvlo Yom Mashavruch, so further he shouldn't say Mashavruch, and he should also not say Mashavruch. This is when the Magen Avraham and the Simon Tuf Pei Chas. V'yachad Nadar B'Yishuv, and a single person dwelling in the city, Yemar Oz L'Spal Mosif Kodim Shizbalim Kindles. Then you should be careful to pray Mosif before the congregation prays it. This one from Megan, but near leave the Yesh Losafik Pen Kavar Hispal, and if he has a Suffolk, excuse me, if he has a Suffolk, maybe perhaps you're already dabbing, Mutav Shalom, it's better just to not say it. The Bazay to be the Abbas of Kaliyam, because this you're going to be able to hear according to everyone, according to the Canal of Sif Gimel, as we said earlier in Sof, at the end of Sif Gimel. Dalit. Im Omer Gashem B'Yom Zacham. If you said Moed Gashem in the summertime, my career zero, and also we make him repeat. B'Choz the Rosh Bracha, and goes back to the beginning of the bracha. B'Im Siyam Bracha, Choz the Rosh Tefillah, finish the bracha, then he goes back to the beginning of the Tefillah. B'Afilu B'Makom Tzrichan, Gashem B'Yom Zacham. Even in a place we need rain at the time in the summer, still we repeat, make him repeat. Hainu, Yom Zacham in the summertime. Hainu, Afilu B'Yom Rishon Shabbos, even the first day when he stopped. This is Pashut. You would still have to repeat. Dahainu b'mosaf shel Yom Tov. Mishna means the most of the first Yom Tov of Pesach. Makaber when Makaber the Ramad Zaf Mincha Ben Ramah when Kul Nigon Mincha. L'Ashliel Tzibur the Kul Yam Afil b'mosaf be'is Choser Fil Mekom Ram. And L'Ashliel Tzibur according to everyone, even in Mosaf, and the time when he's repeating his prayer in a loud voice. Oh, so that day the Geshamin cautioned the Yom B'Yom Tzacham because rain is hard in the world and the times of the summer, therefore we make European say because it's a bad prayer. The Rosh Bracha is the beginning of the bracha, but the Yevadim will cause the Rosh Bracha, but the Yevadim go back to the beginning of the bracha. El the Rav Loshia just went back to the Rav Loshia. The same bracha, and then he finished his bracha, we wouldn't make him repeat it. That's fine. And it's okay if he went back to, you could just go back to the Rav. You should be repeating the whole bracha. If you just go back to Rav Loshia and then continue from there, it's fine. Here's when Shalom Shimon the Chayadam. Yim Simon Bracha, finish the Bracha. But I'm pretty much going to the Hain of the Hachash Amer Baruch Hashem, means after he's already said Baruch Hashem. Abel Shari Chuba, the Chayadam, because the Shari Chuba the Chayadam, right? The Afgham Simon the Gam, it's only if you completely completes it. I've limited this car, the Hachash Hashem, but if you remember after you said Baruch Hashem, after he's making Hashem's name, in time Lamdeni Kukachli, just conclude Lamdeni Kukachli, Kadesh Lot David the Vatala, in order that the Baruch Hashem shouldn't be Lavatala. And if so, then we still like he's in the middle of a bracha. Close the Atzagibar and he goes back to Atzagibar. Close the Rosh Tefillah goes back to the beginning of the Tefillah. Ba'atan, Shalosh brachos Rishonos, Kashus Kanachaz, the first three brachos are considered like one. Vein Zorach Chaz V'lomer, Pasuk Hashem, Pasuk Tifta, you don't have to go back and say Hashem, Pasuk Tifta. This is in the Shari Tshuva. But he has to repeat all the brachos. B'makom, even in a place where you need rain, you can't do it. But if you live high up, so Medina Mispalim and Mizanim al I mean that entire country was praying and fasting for rain. I'm Berlacha, look at Berlacha. Okay. The close the Rosh Bracha, the Berlacha says you go back to the beginning of the bracha. The Rambam Digam Bezechol is the Rosh Dibbin, and that's when you go back to the beginning of the to the beginning. I guess it means the beginning of prayer. If you mention more, I guess you have to repeat prayer. I'm guessing, at least same as the well. We finishes the bracha it's in the halacha. Lo dam la this is not Vav Sansim was not of this above. The dafka im hiskil bracha shachray. If only mention the bracha afterwards, then you have a problem. And you the hakol kimin jehik mashi in really has here since you mentioned something that's not finishing, not proper to mention. Gar, it's worse. When comes to the Lord, similar to the Rosh Rabbah. By Eli Rabban, because the Gam Bezav dafka im hiskil bracha shachray. He passes that in the back on the Eli Rabbah, even at this. It's only if you start in the next bracha. The Ilav Hachav without this, who promotion and Daim Bros the bracha to be still down standing in the bracha, because the Rosh bracha and just go back to the beginning of the bracha. Maprim Begadim Hevi as Machloktum Siyam, he brings them Prim Begadim brings them Machlokas and concludes with Zarachini Nidiyah. The Savik bracha is Hakol, and to be Savik bracha you will be Mako, and therefore you would go back and repeat it. Havel Derachaim B'Chayadim Derachaim the Chayadim B'Shulchan Shlomo, Mishachon the other one in Pasuk with Kistimas of the Shulchan, the Pasuk like the same thing as the Shulchan. Opiniously, the mice means the mice you should go back to do the whole thing. Shon the Balam Hachi, that's the Grand Rambam. Without this, anyway, the opinion of the Grand is like the Rambam, the Fila Minister by Emsa Brach will close the brush. Even if you mention the middle of the Brach, you still go back to the beginning. Megam Yesh Kama Migdolei Poskim, and there's also many of the Gridolei Poskim, Shakos Kolkim al Rabbi, the argument, the Rabbi, the Pasuk the Shulchan Aruch, the Pasuk the Shulchan Aruch passes like Mr. Vav, Kavasa like him. The Omro Kolok Asima. That you should just say without a concluding bracha before starting the next bracha, which is after it. So that whole idea of saying things between the first two brachas after you finish bracha Hashem, whatever, and then starting the next one, that's a Rabbi's opinion not everyone agrees with. Just feel who the Mekiva Shasim also bracha, since you finish that bracha, Havi Kamo Shehiska bracha, as if you started the next bracha, and then Lachain Al Koponim B'Dinyanin, and therefore, in the very least in our topic, the Efshon the Rabbi Gam Kain Sover Kishar Poskim, but even here, even the Rabbi agrees with the other Poskim. Einlos is Mistimus the Shulchan Aruch, Chem Muf in the Stammers of the Shulchan Aruch. The Achosh Shasim Bracha after you can finish the bracha, Filu His Ladain Bracha Chachre, even if you haven't started the next bracha, which is after it. Close the Rosh Tefillah, you have to repeat the whole prayer. For Achakach Mutasib as Hashem Yisparach, and afterwards they found the help of Hashem. He should be blessed. Hashem the Sefer Ma'am Baruch and the book of Ma'am Baruch. Pasuk. Can Shulchan Aruch passing like the Shulchan Aruch me call Elu Atami from all these reasons that the Berura mentioned. But people will welcome to even a place where you need. I'm afraid we're going to look at the Prima Gadim Shekaz with a few Eretz Kulam Ashkenaz Didan, even the whole land like our Ashkenaz and us. I feel well agree with Michelle is worse than asking. I ain't some look at the reason. But came Kayadim Sim the Kayadim causes the Afilu im Hayam Asiris if there was a withholding of rain, there's a drought. So commotion attacks even Mishnah Berurah is copied up in the Mishnah Berurah. But Emes lo havanti the Rama truly I don't understand their words. Shahari Tam Shulchan Aruch the reason for the Shulchan Aruch Sham Lehin Shelahu in regards to prayer is Dilma Hilchos like a rush, maybe Halach like the rush. The Mistaber time because in a lot of it makes sense as reason. Ein Sham Beis Yosef Hashem or Maria. Look there in the Beis Yosef name of Maria. Mitaz Begrav the Chuvas of Rush and Mitaz Begrav. And the Chuvas of Rush before Sham. Behead you do it in the Scholars to mention the same thing would be by mentioning. He says the same. It's clear there the same thing by mentioning the reason of this rush. Raya Sham Midaf Dal and the proof there's from Dal and Beis Maskanas Gemara including the Gemara. The Shana when an Imshach also in the Scholar that the shale doesn't get dragged on as much as the mentioning The commotion team Magra Shamas includes the Gemara there Besim Kofi Zion Sif Al. They be a mask of Shal and Ein Shamas Sif Mask of Shal look there. Shulchan Aruch Asher Klas and Shulchan Aruch way the rights of Filu Makom. In the not approved. The Dilma Humayri Be'eza Yaris maybe songs in cities. The Mizagam the Rush in the Has Gersham Geshem and then even according to Rush and mentioned Geshem. The Gamla in Sheila in the Shul Matzah Berachos Hashanim presented even in regards to asking, you shouldn't ask for rain in Brachos of Hashanim in regards to this. Moshe Hevi Rasham and Chukos Maria it's brought there in the Shuva from Mehida B'nai Ninveh, from that case of B'nai Ninveh. Val opens that cause a Rambam in this kind of case. The Rambam writes, "Kam came to Malcolm Shein Tzrich on Yashem place you don't need rain beyond Zakam in the summer. Shol beyond Vishomet Tefillah. You ask Shemet Tefillah. I'm sorry, in places with Mekomo Shein Tzrich, they do need rain in the summer. You do ask in Shemet Tefillah. Kmoshe Hevi calls them Beis Yosef as Bishmo Sham B'Simen Kaf Yadayin. It's problem called this the Beis Yosef in his name in Simen Kaf Yadayin. Aval Eretz Achos Kula, but for a whole entire land, not just a city. There's real like a rush, then they hold like the rush. The Indian Diavin in regards to B'Diavin, the Mishina as Nusach Asfil of a Kavish Shariel B'Rechus Shanim Diyatzov. Then if he holds like the rush, that if in regards to B'Diavin, if he changed the prayer and said the whole prayer and the whole request in Berachos Hashanim, and he'd be Yotzer. The Al-Korcha, this real a force he has to be, the Nek Rashina Mitam Mishitav. It doesn't count as a change from the coin which they're from common coins. The Kol Medina Ekvaz Man Alafim Minhag. Every single country has its time according to its minhag. B'Yom Kain near the Huadin Lane in Haskaras, he also B'Diavad. Same thing would be, it seems like the same would be by regards to mentioning it'd be Yosef B'Diavad. I'm Beis Yosef, look at Beis Yosef, Mashakos of Shem Talmid Ben Yonah, it says in the name of Talmid Ben Yonah. Mashakam Kin the Mind B'Davish Shesham Adin B'Shamed Field also mentioned, Mash also there is talking about something which is the din is to B'Shpiyat Tefillah, Avalo B'Davish Shesham Adin B'Yachos Hashanim, not something which there is the din was in Berachos Hashanim. Even if you want to say that the Mir Ben Yonah don't hold like the Rosh in regards to She'ela, but Talmud Hadin the Didei B'Shemet Tefillah, and constantly then the din is by Shemet Tefillah, and that's why Mir Ben Yonah is saying you should say in Shemet Tefillah. Akoponim Ein Shum Raya should become Mechaber. There's no proof in Mechaber Divrei Permagan the words of Permagan V'Chayodim. But Adra Behavach Nira an opposite in the opposite seems. Medivri Chuvas Russian the words of response to this Rasa now. Ukapi Masha Paskida Paskinun Kididei Halacha Leinin Diavad. And according to what we pass like him in the Halacha in regards to Vidyavad. Okay. Maybe it's Mir Ben Yonah are holding like, not like the Rosh. Okay. And there's no Raya for the Mechaber. I'm not so clear on the whole thing. Again, the feedback, and if so, according to this, Medina finishes speak of Malta Bain Pesach. According to in our country, which need rain between Pesach and Shavuos. L'chora hayaroy lanu lipsok b'diavad. Ain't cause him his Geshem. It's fitting proper for us to not say you shouldn't repeat if he mentioned Geshem. I will keep in the Balav Hachim Magan Avram Bestavik Besim Kafi Zayim Besist. Anyway, with this Magan Avram Bestavik Kafi Zayim Besifka and Dal the Dilma Shulchan Aruch Lo Mestabik Lifso Kavasik Zarash. Then maybe the Shulchan Aruch doesn't. I guess it's not enough to pass in like the rush. Rak Sheish Kashiyesh Tzuras Kasham. It's only when there's an actual drought. Near Lachora the Inlas of Pesach Prima Galam. It seems that you shouldn't move from the Pesach of Prima Galam and say that you do have to repeat. But near the Raya Lizan seems to prove to this. Gam came with the Ramal from the words around the comments of Pesach. Magal later on Siftas and the Grad. The Havik Bimdino Sainu, the Hari Bimdino Sainu. Oh yeah, in our countries it was. Vafilu Halka Matzul Chaz Bevada Hiskir, and he made him repeat if he for sure mentioned it. However, if there's a drought, he's followed his Geshem and he prayed, he mentioned Mashra when the Geshem, Zorachlian and Kayal Chaz is following you, if you have to go back and repeat. Mekol Tesh and Shashal Gam Matas, also if he asked also for rain. Dilav Hachim Manav Shachlian Yotz B'Diavad, and if not for this, meaning he asked also in Baruch Aleinu for rain. If that is Manav Shachli, he's not going to be able to be the Evid. We also near the Escalavators and David better they should pray they pray in a form of an Adava. The whole Zebim and Sino and all this in our countries, Vine Muslim and Kofi Zaim, Be'alacha, Kosim Kofi Zaim, and the Be'alacha the Master Shalmater and the Master Shalmater, so you should repeat it with a in the form of a mezava. I don't know if he means every time you repeat, but in the countries which they need rain, even now the Tiris Kashama remains only in the Tiris